Hey everyone, this is Erika Hood with the Center for Reducing Health Disparities, and I am here today on our podcast, actually with the Community Spotlight. We have one of our community partners and dear friends with us here, Carey Gibbons from NEOCH, which is the Northeast Ohio Coalition for the Homeless, and she's here to talk a bit about her organization and some of the great work that they are doing. Hey, Carey.
Hey, Erika, how are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. I know you, but go ahead and introduce yourself for folks listening and tell us a little bit about you and your organization.
All right, wonderful. So my name is Carey Gibbons. My pronouns are she and they. I am an outreach worker with the Northeast Ohio Coalition for the Homeless, which is a mouthful. So we just go by NEOCH. My role with NEOCH is to serve the homeless who identify in the LGBTQ plus community, folks who have experienced human trafficking, folks who have aged out of foster care and or possibly could be pregnant. The grant is specific to 14 to 24-year-olds, but I do work outside of those ages. And what NEOC's goal is essentially housing is a human right. So we are driven in our values, which is we are anti-racist, community, we focus on community, we are compassionate, we lead with compassion, we stand in solidarity, we affirm, we have dignity, we are trauma informed, we are radically inclusive, we are graceful, we also are accountable to ourselves and those we serve, we are pro-LGBTQ, we have integrity, we lead with justice and love. And so for me, working at NEOCH with the incredible team of folks that we have, we're able to advocate as well as serve the folks who are experiencing homelessness or unstably housed.
Wow, I love it. That is a lot that comes with the organization's mission, and everything that you said was definitely something that resonates, and it's a space that I would call comforting and safe. And
Yeah.
I love that. So that has to be an awesome place to work with those
Yeah.
values. So some folks, think that we're out of the pandemic. We're still kind of living in this space of a true pandemic going on. A lot more freedom that we had last year, and maybe a lot less fear that we all had around this time last year. So let's go back to that moment and talk about the work that you were doing at NEOCH and how you all may have had to shift and focus your priorities in a time where the entire world was focused on such a huge health issue.
Yeah, so I came on board actually in May of 2020. So shutdown had already occurred, and the beauty of our organization and as our outreach team at NEOCH, we got all the necessary resources to stay in the community, to stay going to campsites, to stay being able to go to different locations where we know homeless folks are. And so with that being said, when all the CARES Act money came in, the continuum of care through homeless services with so a collaboration of organizations, so NEOCH, Lutheran Metropolitan Ministries, and Frontline, we all got together and, we were able to create these alternative shelters. So there's two in Lakewood. We are also able to create a contract with the Cleveland Hostel, which was also a really great opportunity for folks to be separate as far as like the congregated Norma Her and 2100. So what we've really realized in this time is that, having decongregated spaces for folks who are experiencing homelessness really helps them get on their feet and transition into independent living a bit more seamlessly. Now, granted, when anything's new, you always have bumps in the road. But as a continuum, I believe we took those in stride, and we really, safety was our number one priority. So, folks were getting tested. it was quite surprising that even amongst the homeless population, how low the rates of COVID were. And then there were hotels that were specifically COVID positive, right? So we really were able to create this pathway of safety for all. And even with folks like some organizations, their folks were able to work from home, which is great. But having the privilege and being able to be safe while being still out in the community was really really quite impactful. Yeah, so I think that one of the things that I hope moving forward, particularly in homeless services, that we take away from this is that you know allowing for decongregated shelter is extremely impactful for those who are experiencing homelessness, and it also allows for that person to really start to unpack some of the trauma and their mental health. And as because when you're in a congregation of people, it's harder to really focus on yourself. So I think moving forward, it will be a really big goal to continue with decongregated sheltering.
Yeah, I never thought about that until things like this arise. The need for the space to make that happen. And then
Yeah,
also the idea behind housing being a, what is it?
human right.
A human right. Yeah. So, wow. I think that my community spotlights that we've done have really been eye-opening because it opens your eyes to social service issues that you kind of just see from the surface and not
Mhm.
really understand, I guess, the web that is all involved in connecting those services to people who need them most.
Yeah, and the fascinating thing too, Erica, is that from a privileged perspective, right? When we think of homelessness, it's like, what did you do to cause this in your life, right? And in reality, like, folks are struggling with mental health. If you're living on a fixed income, can you really, if you're getting seven something a month and you have food and you have housing to pay for as well as utilities, like that money gets eaten up so very quickly where it's like, okay, like yeah, like you are going to get evicted, and therefore now you have an eviction, and then it becomes these other larger barriers that, like, off rip, if we would have been able to address collectively, right? Like, you know as opposed to being like, oh, you're just mentally ill, and you don't deserve um safe shelter, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
and
absolutely. And I think we've
and
seen that too throughout the pandemic, how many people were just one crisis away from being homeless. I mean,
Mhm.
literally, many people don't have the luxury of having, that rainy day fund to sustain them for 6+ months. And a
Right.
lot of our community members are just a tragedy away or a crisis away from being homeless themselves. And we saw that, take place last year.
Hmm. And luckily, with the eviction moratorium that has been extended, like that has been really great. And also, what happens when it's lifted, right? Like, there are wonderful community partners such as CHN, that are helping with rental assistance, but they're so backed up that they're 8 months behind, and it's no fault of their own. It's simply just that instance where this person is legit a day away from homelessness. So I think that really allowing for you know again, leading with compassion when it comes to a lot of these unforeseen circumstances.
So, putting you on a spot, has there been anything that you learned from the last year, year and a half that you've been, well, let's just say a little over a year that you've been with your organization, with some of the things that you've seen, whether positive or negative, anything that you have learned where you're like, wow, that really hit me, or, I didn't expect to have gotten this from my new role?
um well, there's two things. So the executive director, his name is Chris Nestrick, and the way Chris allows me to authentically show up and be me in a way that I've never experienced before as an employee, has really given me such a larger platform to grow and to evolve. And so that has been, I want to say out loud, like, being affirmed and seen by him is absolutely incredible. And then also having this super supportive team is just wonderful. The negative that I've seen over this last year, and unfortunately it's a systemic issue, is that our shelter system fails trans women of color on a regular basis. And it is such a problem that, you know, it's very challenging to get folks to accept the person who's walking in the door, because when you're experiencing homelessness, your ability to present in the way that you want, you know, like, is it, I'm going to get food or I'm going to get a wig, right? I'm going to get, you know, hygiene stuff, or I'm going to eat, right? So, or I'm going to get a bus pass. Like, and so having to navigate with the trans women that I serve has been 100% eye-opening in a way that, like, we have to do better, right? Cleveland has been named the epicenter for trans murders, and like, that is real, and we have to figure out ways to support these individuals so that they can be safe, so that they don't have to be out on the streets getting harmed.
Wow. I remember maybe a year ago, or not quite a year ago, seeing an article about Cleveland being one of the worst places to live for African American women. And now you're saying an epicenter for trans murders taking place in our dear city, the land that everyone loves, you know. And I try to tell people that as great as the city Cleveland is, if you are not in tune with the disparities and the true issues that exist. I mean, you can look at it through a privileged lens and think it's a great place. We have a beautiful lake with a fun beach and all that good stuff, but Cleveland is very tough. And thank you for bringing that to my attention as, you know, a reminder, despite the good things that are going on and the beautiful landscape and, you know, history and art that we have. We have true work to do, Carey. We really have some work to do.
Yes.
And kind of unpacking these issues and sorting them through. So
yeah,
thank you.
You're welcome. And so definitely, I definitely want to, I want folks to hear that, and also know, like, you know, NEOCH, we have this really dope training. It's facilitated by myself and my coworker, Chloe. And so, you know, there are opportunities for growth and change, and like, a training's not going to solve it all, but having the information and really leading with compassion, and even though it's not your experience to be a trans woman, it is still your experience to walk with them, right? And to know that, like, we aren't that different.
Yeah. Sorry. I think we've been having a series of crucial conversations. I can say that I've been a part of a series of crucial conversations over the last year, and training, and I think just widening one's perspective around the world that involves, you know, there's so much more in the world that does not directly impact you, but it does. It does. So yeah, I would definitely be interested. I was going to ask you, you know, what can people do to help support, if it's through volunteering or donations, and then even this training opportunity. Are you all open for, you know, organizations to call you to sign up a group of their employees to learn more? Okay.
So what you can do is just go to, it's www.neoch.org. And there's ways to donate. as far as volunteering, we're still, we do have some capacity, but we're still being very mindful, with, even though we're moving away from COVID, that it's still real. Donations like, socks, hygiene stuff, like we definitely are always open. Tents, sleeping bags. I've really found like there's nothing better than seeing someone put on a fresh, clean pair of socks with new with new shoes, right? So, those are some ways. We offer many different trainings. You can go underneath our advocacy link and see what we're offering. Right now we're doing a series on, you can do a housing 101. We're talking about a lot of like, what does it mean to pay to stay, with the eviction moratorium. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of ways that folks can get involved remotely and support NEOCH and our great work.
I love
and
this.
all donations are accepted.
I would definitely share this. I've heard of so many community organizations whose mission is designed to assist a specific audience of residents, a specific group of residents, but they found that, there are so many underlying issues that our community members have, whether it's food insecurity or housing insecurity, or them being a part of the LGBTQ community, and these organizations really not knowing how to address some of those needs. So I think this can be extremely helpful. And I appreciate your time today. I really do.
Yeah, same. Thank you so much for asking me to talk.
No
really
problem. I can always rely on you, Carey. Thank you so much. And
you're welcome.
I know you're not going anywhere, so we'll be in touch. Thanks.
Yes, of course.